Barker, really good to talk to you once again. Such a difficult topic. Give us a sense of what protection women have at the moment in India from rape within marriage.
Hi, Beverly, and it's good to be back. The short answer to your question is women in India have no protection at all if they were to specifically approach either the court or the police station, let's say close to their home, and say, my husband has raped me, because rape within the framework of a marriage is simply not recognized to be a crime in the Indian law. The tragedy is compounded by the fact that there was an attempt to bring in a legislation in the Indian Parliament a few years ago, and across party lines, India's politicians that can rarely agree on anything basically showed rare unanimity in arguing that the institution of marriage would be damaged by the recognition of marital rape as a criminal offense. Now we have this case being heard at this moment in the court, where the petitioners are imploring the court to basically read down the part of the law that says that consent is somehow automatically implied in a marriage. So yes, it is shameful, it is embarrassing. As a feminist, as a woman, I'm disturbed by the fact that we have failed to criminalize marital rape. And I know that millions of women are looking towards the court to basically step in and do what our parliament failed to do or could not do.
Yeah, it has sparked fierce debate on both sides. Now take us through the arguments. Many men's groups oppose the change. Why?
Well, the argument that the men's groups are making is that this is a law that could be misused by women, especially in the context of divorce petitions. Now, one of the things that you have to understand is that it takes extremely long for couples to get a divorce in India. In fact, there's a mandatory cooling off period. The court actually, and I don't know if this happens in other countries, but in India, the court actually asks a couple that wants to separate to spend 6 months making sure that they actually want to do that. So there's a lot of sort of inordinate premium on the institution of marriage. Divorce outside of, let's say, socioeconomic privileged classes like mine is still stigmatized. And a woman wanting a divorce is especially stigmatized. So because of this sort of premium placed on the institution of marriage, getting a divorce is not easy. Now, men's groups are arguing that when women come to court seeking a percentage of, let's say, joint property or money in alimony, or let's say they want what the men's group called revenge in turn for for a man not wanting to stay in a marriage, then they fear that a sexual abuse or sexual assault within the marriage will be used as somewhat of a cloak. However, the counter is an obvious one. The misuse of a law cannot be the basis for that law not to exist. There are many other laws that currently offer protection to Indian women against domestic abuse, against demands for a dowry at the point of marriage, and so on. And of course, there have been incidences of those laws being misused, but that doesn't take away or diminish the need for that law. And philosophically speaking, the idea that India in 2022 is telling women that you surrender your right to consent the moment you marry someone is an abomination. And, so I do hear the concerns about misuse, but those concerns apply to any law.
It is extraordinary, as you say, in 2022 that women are still having to fight for this right. And of course, the issue is, as we've talked about before, India remains a place where women don't often have a voice with regard to this, that we see brutal attacks against women. And that is fresh in the mind of a lot of people.
Well, yes, sexual abuse and sexual violence, like everywhere else in the world, this is something that India is grappling with, but because we're a large, diverse country, because a lot of violence takes place at the intersection of other inequities like caste. You have women from poorer classes and castes being subjected to sexual violence almost as an instrument of caste discrimination. Let me tell you a little story. One of the first few gang rapes that I reported on when I just became a journalist, and this was about 25 years ago, was the gang rape rape of a poor village woman in the state of Rajasthan who was trying to stop a child marriage. And one of the men who raped her was the father of that 1-year-old baby. She was trying to stop the marriage of a 1-year-old baby. The lady's name was Bhavri Devi. She was an illiterate Dalit woman, which is at the bottom of the caste hierarchy. And when she complained, the villagers shunted her to the outside of the village. She wasn't allowed access to even the village water. Guess what's happened, more than 20 years later? Thanks to this illiterate poor village woman who had the courage to demand justice, India now has sexual harassment guidelines because the Supreme Court was forced to intervene, and they argued that this lady was, as a social activist, raped at her place of work. And therefore, all of us got finally sexual harassment guidelines that protect us at our places of work, but Bhavri Devi never got justice. She's still in court 25 years later fighting for justice. So of course, this is just disturbing. And one other statistic I'll share with you is that while we think that rape and sexual violence happens out there on the streets of India, actually more than 90% of women who are abused, government data tells you know the man who has abused them. So it is often the circle of trust that is more lethal for women than what happens outside in public spaces.
Yeah, so when you talk about that Supreme Court fight that got rights for many women, where does the decision in this case lie, and do you expect to see some change?
Well, we're very hopeful, but it has not reached the Supreme Court of India yet. It is still at the level of the High Court, which means that it could be taken all the way up to the Supreme Court. I think that we're quite hopeful of a progressive intervention from the High Court, but that will not be the end of this battle. It will most certainly go all the way up to the Supreme Court. And this is the paradox of India. We've been so intuitively liberal in so many other ways. We've had women leading this country well before the United States of America. We have very progressive abortion laws. We've never debated over the rights of women to vote. But when it comes to this institution of marriage and the sort of, the premium placed on it for women especially, that is where I think a lot of common sense just leaves us. And I think it's a matter of common sense. How can consent be implied in a marriage? It just can't. It's a relationship like any other.
Yeah. Barkha, appreciate, as always, your insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Take care.